Hare Krishna.
Legal. Okay, so tell me when you're ready.
Okay.
Done. Okay. Hare Krishna, my dear devotees, all glories to Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. So today we're going to hear from Canto 5, Chapter 12, text number 4. All right.
Yes.
O Master of Yogic Power, you said that fatigue resulting from moving the body here and there is appreciated by direct perception. But actually, there is no fatigue. It simply exists as a matter of formality. By such inquiries and answers, no one can come to the conclusion of the absolute truth because of your presentation of this statement. My mind is a little disturbed. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. Formal inquiries and answers about the bodily conception do not constitute knowledge of the absolute truth. Knowledge of the absolute truth is quite different from the formal understanding of bodily pains and pleasures. In Bhagavad Gita, Lord Krishna informs Arjuna that the pains and pleasures experienced in relation to the body are temporary. They come and go. One should not be disturbed by them, but should tolerate them and continue with spiritual realization. Well, that makes sense. We have to learn to tolerate difficulties in life and continue with spiritual realization rather than be overwhelmed by material civilization, material problems. Text number 5 and 6. The self-realized Brahmana, Jadabharata, said, among the various material combinations and permutations, there are various forms and earthly transformations. For some reason, these move on the surface of the earth and are called palanquin carriers. Those material transformations which do not move are gross material objects like stones. In any case, the material body is made of earth and stone in the form of feet, ankles, calves, knees, thighs, torso, throat, and head. Upon the shoulders is the wooden palanquin, and within the palanquin is the so-called king of Sovira. The body of the king is simply another transformation of earth. But within that body, your lordship is situated, and falsely thinking that you are the king of the state of Soviria. Purport. After analyzing the material bodies of the palanquin carrier and the palanquin passenger, Jadabharata concludes that the real living force is the living entity. The living entity is the offspring of Lord Vishnu. Therefore, within this material world, among moving and non-moving things, the real principle is Lord Vishnu. Due to his presence, everything is working, and there are certain actions and reactions. One who understands Lord Vishnu as the original cause of everything is to be understood to be perfectly situated in knowledge. Although he was falsely proud of being a king, King Rahugana was not really situated in knowledge. Therefore, he was rebuking the palanquin carriers, including the self-realized Brahmana Jadabharata. This is the first accusation Jadabharata made against the king, who was daring to talk to a 1 second learned Brahmana from the flimsy ground of ignorance. The flimsy ground of ignorance, identifying everything with matter. King Rahugana argued that the living entity is within the body, and that when the body is fatigued, the living entity within must therefore be suffering. It is clearly explained in the following verses that the living entity does not suffer due to the body's fatigue. Srila Vishwanatha Chakravarti gives an example of a child heavily decorated with ornaments. Although the child's body is very delicate, he does not feel fatigue, nor do the parents think that his ornaments should be taken away. The living entity has nothing to do with bodily pains and pleasures. These are simply mental concoctions. An intelligent man will find the original cause of everything. Material combinations and permutations may be a matter of fact in worldly dealings, but actually, the living force, the soul, has nothing to do with them. Those who are materially upset take care of the body and manufacture Daridya Narayana, poor Narayana. However, it is not a fact that the soul or supersoul becomes poor simply because the body is poor. These are the statements of ignorant people. The soul and supersoul are always apart from bodily pleasure and pain. Okay, the soul and supersoul are always apart from the bodily pleasure and pain. Yeah, that makes sense. Text number 7. It is a fact, however, that these innocent people carrying your palanquin without payment are certainly suffering due to this injustice. Their condition is very lamentable because you have forcibly engaged them in carrying your palanquin. This proves that you are cruel and unkind. Yet, due to false prestige, you were thinking that you were protecting the citizens. This is ludicrous. You were such a fool that you could not have been adored as a great man in an assembly of persons advanced in knowledge. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. King Rehoboam was proud of being king, and he felt that he had the right to control the citizens as he liked. But actually, he was engaging men in carrying his palanquin without payment, and therefore he was causing them trouble without reason. Nonetheless, the king was thinking that he was the protector of the citizens. Actually, the king should be the representative of the supreme personality of Godhead. For this reason, he is called Nara Devata, the Lord among human beings. However, when a king thinks that because he is the head of the state, he can utilize the citizens for his sense gratification, he is in error. Such an attitude is not appreciated by learned scholars. According to the Vedic principles, the king should be advised by learned sages, brahmanas, and scholars who advise him according to the injunctions given in the Dharma Shastra. The duty of the king is to follow these instructions. Learned circles do not appreciate the king's utilizing public endeavor for his own benefit. His duty is to give protection to the citizens instead. The king should not become such a rogue that he explodes the citizens for his own, exploits the citizens for his own benefit. It is stated in Srimad Bhagavatam that in Kali Yuga, the head of government will be plunderers and thieves. Yeah, they're going to plunder innocent people's wealth and other assets. These thieves are and plunderers take the money and property of the public by force or conveyance, con, connivance, by force or I don't understand how to say that. Connivance.
Connivance.
Therefore, it is said in Srimad Bhagavatam, Rajanar Nirgrinar Dasya Dharma B. As Kali Yuga advances, we can see that these characteristics are already visible. We can certainly imagine how deteriorated human civilization will be by the end of Kali Yuga. Indeed, there will no longer be a sane man capable of understanding God and our relationship with Him. In other words, human beings will be just like animals at that time. In order to reform human society, Lord Krishna will come in the form of the Kalki Avatara. His business will be to kill all the atheists because ultimately the real protector is Vishnu or Krishna. The Lord incarnates and sets things in order when things are mismanaged by so-called kings and heads of government. As Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, Yada yada hi dharmasya planir bhavati bharata. Of course, this takes many years, but the principle is there. When the king or governmental head does not follow the proper principles, nature deals out the punishments in the form of war, famine, and so forth. Therefore, if the governmental head is not aware of life's goal, he should not take charge of ruling the people. Actually, the supreme proprietor of everything is Lord Vishnu. He is the maintainer of everyone. The king, the father, and the guardian are simply representatives of Lord Vishnu, empowered by him to look after the management and maintain things. It is therefore the duty of the head of the state to maintain the general populace in such a way that people will ultimately know the goal of life, which is to go back to Godhead, of course. Nate vitu swartagatim hibishnam. Unfortunately, the foolish governmental head and the general populace do not know that the ultimate goal of life is to understand and approach Lord Vishnu. Without this knowledge, everyone is in ignorance and all society is crowded with cheaters and cheated. It's really sad. Text 8. All of us on the surface of the globe are living entities in different forms. Some of us are moving and some are not moving. All of us come into existence, remain for some time, and are annihilated when the body is again mingled with the earth. We are all simply different transformations of the earth. Different bodies and capacities are simply transformations of the earth that exist in name only, for everything grows out of the earth, and when everything is annihilated, it again mingles with the earth. In other words, we are but dust, and we shall be dust. And we shall uh, but be dust, meaning we're only dust. The material body is only dust. Everyone can consider this point. Purport. In the Brahma Sutra, it is said, Tad ananyat vam arabam vana sabdad vyaha 2.1.14. This cosmic manifestation is a mixture of matter and spirit, but the cause is the Supreme Brahman, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Therefore, in Srimad Bhagavatam 1.5.20, it is said, Idam hi Vishvam Bhagavan Ivetara. The entire cosmic manifestation is but a transformation of the energy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. But because of illusion, no one can appreciate that God is non-different from the material world. Actually, he's not different, but this material world is simply a transformation of his different energies. Parasya Shakti Vividaiva Shriyate. There are also other versions of this in the Vedas. Sarvam Klav Idam Brahma. Matter and spirit are all non-different from the Supreme Brahman, Bhagavan. Lord Sri Krishna confirms this statement in the Bhagavad Gita 7.4. Me bina pakritir astada. The material energy is Krishna's energy, but it is separated from him. The spiritual energy is also his energy, but is not separated from him. When the material energy is engaged in service of the Supreme Spirit, so-called material energy is also transformed into spiritual energy, just as an iron rod becomes fire when placed in contact with fire. When we can understand by an analytical study that the Supreme Personality of Godhead is the cause of all causes, our knowledge is perfect. Simply understanding the transformations of different energies is partial knowledge. We must come to the ultimate cause, not te vidu swartagatim hi Vishnu. The knowledge of those who are not interested in knowing the original cause of all emanations is never perfect knowledge. There is nothing in the phenomenal world that is not produced by the supreme energy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Aromas from the earth are different scents manufactured and used for different purposes. But the original cause is the earth, nothing else. A water pot made of earth can be used to carry water for some time, but ultimately the pot is nothing but earth. Therefore, there is no difference between the pot and the original ingredient, earth. It is simply a different transformation of the energy. Originally, the cause or primary ingredient is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and the varieties are only byproducts. In the Chandogya Upanishad, it is stated, Yeta somi ekena mita pindena sarvam rim mayam vijnatam syad vacharam panam vikaro nama deyam miti keti eva satyam. If one studies the earth, he naturally understands the byproducts of the earth. The Vedas therefore enjoin Kasmin Bhagavo Vijnate Sarvam Idam Vijnatam Bhavati. If one simply understands the original cause, Krishna, the cause of all causes, then naturally everything else is understood, although it may be presented in different varieties. By understanding the original cause of different varieties, one can understand everything. If we understand Krishna, the original cause of everything, we do not need to separately study the subsidiary varieties. Therefore, from the very beginning, it is said, Satyam Param Dhimai. One has to concentrate one's understanding on the supreme truth, Krishna or Vasudeva. The word Vasudeva indicates the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is the cause of all causes. mat stani sarvabhutani nachaham tes tes vasvadita. This is the summary of phenomenal and noumenal philosophy. So, phenomenal is what is directly seen, and noumenal what is not directly seen, but it exists. So you have phenomenal and noumenal philosophy. The phenomenal world depends on the noumenal existence. Similarly, everything exists by virtue of the potency of the Supreme Lord, although due to our ignorance, the Supreme Lord is not perceived in everything. You see, so noumenal means something that is not perceived but does actually exist. One may say, okay, text number 9. One may say that varieties arise from the planet Earth itself. However, although the universe may temporarily appear to be the truth, it ultimately has no real existence. Yeah, because it's going to disappear over time. The Earth, it's just like a skyscraper. Is the skyscraper going to be eternal? No. Eventually, either it'll fall by itself or it'll be destroyed and replaced with some other building. The Earth was originally created by a combination of atomic particles, but these particles are impermanent. Impermanent. Actually, the atom is not the cause of the universe. I like that statement. The atom is not the cause of the universe, although some philosophers think so. It is not a fact that the varieties found in this material world simply result from atomic juxtaposition or combination. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. Those who follow the atomic theory think that the protons and electrons of atoms combine in such a way as to bring all material existence into being. However, the scientists fail to discover the cause of atomic existence itself. Under these circumstances, we cannot accept that the atom is the cause of the universe. Such theories are advanced by unintelligent people. But it's everybody, almost everyone is considering that the atoms are the cause of the universe. According to real intelligence, the real cause of the cosmic manifestation is the Supreme Lord. Janmali Asyayata. He is the original cause of all creation. As stated in Krishna, as stated in Bhagavad Gita 10.8, Aham sarvasya prabhavo matak sarvam bhavante. Krishna is the original cause. Sarvam karana karanam. He is the cause of all causes. Krishna is the cause of atom, the material energy. Bhumir apo nalo vayu kam mano buddhirevacha ahankara ityam me bina bhakatira stata. Bhagavad Gita 7.4. The ultimate cause is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and only those in ignorance try to find out other causes by posing different theories. Yeah, there's so many theories. Most of them are bogus. Text 10. Since this universe has no real ultimate existence. Okay, when it says something like that, what does it mean? It means that it is not eternal. It's going to come and go. And when things come and go, the living entity ends up with nothing. So, uh, since this universe has no real ultimate existence, the things within it, shortness, differences, grossness, skinniness, smallness, bigness, result, cause living symptoms and materials are all imagined. Well, they only have temporary existence. Therefore, we think that they are real substance, but actually they're going to disappear. They are all parts made of the same substance, earth, but they are named differently. The differences are characterized by the substance, nature, predisposition, time, and activity. You should know that all these are simply mechanical manifestations created by material nature. Okay, that means that everything we think belongs to that we think belongs to us will eventually disappear, and we end up with nothing. So that is the reality. The temporary manifestations and varieties within this material world are simply creations of material nature under various circumstances. Prakrite kriyamanani kunai karmani sarvasa. The actions and reactions carried out by the material nature are sometimes accepted as our scientific inventions. Therefore, we want to take credit for them and defy the existence of God. Wow, that's the truth. This is described in Bhagavad Gita 3.27. Ahankara vimudat maha kartaham iti manyate. Due to being covered by the illusory energy, by the illusory external energy, the living entity tries to take credit for the differentiated creations within the material world. Actually, all these are being created automatically by the material force set in motion by the energy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Therefore, the ultimate cause is the Supreme Person. As stated in Brahma Samhita, Ishvara Parama Krishna, Satchitananda Vigraha, Anadiradir Govinda, Sarva Karana Karanam. It is the cause of all causes. And he is the cause of all causes, the ultimate cause. In this regard, Srila Madhvacharya says, Evam sarvam tata pakrevaya kalpitam vishnur anyat. Evam pakrit yadara swayam ananyadaro vishnur eva ata sarva sabdas ta cha tasmin eva. Actually, the original cause is Lord Vishnu, but out of ignorance, people think that matter is the cause of everything. And even today, the scientists believe that matter is the cause of everything and not the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Things are contemplated on the ephemeral or external platform, but actually, this is not the truth. The actual protector and shelter of everyone is Brahman, the supreme, not the king. Okay, so Brahman, it means Krishna, the supreme personality of Godhead. The actual protectress is the material nature, but Vishnu is her Lord. There you go. That's a very important statement. He is the Lord of everything. Lord Janardana is the director both externally and internally. He is the cause of the function of words and what is expressed in all sound. And now, to quote Sira Siddhartha Yadvat Driva Yas Tavad Evatu Ashraya Tvam Chagotritvam Anyesam Upacharata. Lord Vishnu is the resting place of the entire creation. Brahmana Hipatistaham, Bhagavad Gita 14.12, 14.27. O Brahman, everything is resting. All the universes are resting on the Brahma Jyoti, and all the planets are resting on the universal atmosphere. In each and every planet, there are oceans, hills, states, and kingdoms, and each planet is giving shelter to so many living entities. They are all standing on the earth of feet and legs, torso and shoulders, but actually, everything is resting ultimately on the potencies of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Therefore, he is known ultimately as Sarva Karana Karanam, the cause of all causes. Yeah, so we think that we are the cause of all causes, but actually we are just like puppets. The Supreme Lord is the cause of all causes. What then is the ultimate truth? Okay, that's a very good question. The answer is that non dual knowledge is the ultimate truth. So, non dual knowledge, meaning something that is one, and never changes. And what is that? That is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. That's the ultimate truth. It is devoid of the contamination of material qualities. It gives us liberation. It is one without the second, all pervading and beyond imagination. So it's using the word it, but actually it's referring to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna. The first realization of that knowledge is Brahman. Then Paramatma, the super soul, is realized by the yogis who try to see him without grievance. This is the second stage of realization. Without grievance means without, let's say, suffering uh, or um, not being satisfied. This is the second stage of realization. Finally, full realization of the same supreme knowledge is realized in the Supreme Person. All learned scholars describe the Supreme Personality as Vasudeva, the cause of Brahman, Paramatma, and others. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. In Chaitanya Charitamrita, it is said, Yad Advaitam Brahmopanishadi Tad Api Asya Tanu Baha. The impersonal Brahman effulgence of the Absolute Truth consists of the bodily rays of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Gya Atman Taryami Purusha iti so Shyam sa Vibhava. What is known as Atma and Antaryami, the Supersoul, is but an expansion of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Sad Aishwarya Purno Ya Iha Bhagavan Sa Swayam Ayam. What is described as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, complete with all six opulences, is Vasudeva. And Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is non-different from him. Great learned scholars and philosophers accept this after many, many births. Vasudeva Sarvam Iti Samahatma Sudurva Baha. Bhagavad Gita 7.19. The wise man can understand that ultimately Vasudeva, or Krishna, is the cause of Brahman, Paramatma, the Supersoul. Thus, Vasudeva is Sarva Karana Karanam, the cause of all causes. Vasudeva means Krishna. This is confirmed in Srimad Bhagavatam. The real tattva, meaning the real truth, or absolute truth, is Bhagavan. But due to incomplete realization of the absolute truth, people sometimes describe the same Vishnu as impersonal Brahman or localized Paramatma. Vadanti tatra vidas tattvam yas yanam advayam brahmeti paramatmiti bhagavaniti sadyate. Srimad Bhagavatam 1.2.11. From the very beginning, Srimad Bhagavatam says, Satyam Param Dhimahi. We meditate on the Supreme Truth. The Supreme Truth is explained here as Jnanam Visuddham Satyam. The Absolute Truth is devoid of material contamination and is transcendental to material qualities. It gives all spiritual success and liberation from the material world. That supreme absolute truth is Krishna, or Vasudeva. There is no difference between Krishna's inner self and outer self. Krishna is Purna, the complete whole. There is no distinction between his body and soul, as there is between ours. Sometimes, so-called scholars, not knowing the constitutional position of Krishna, mislead people by saying that the Krishna within is different from the Krishna without. When Krishna says, Manmana Bhava Mad Bhakto Mad Yajimam Namaskuru, so-called scholars advise the reader that it is not the person, Krishna, to whom we must surrender, but the Krishna within. Oh boy, what is the Krishna from within? It's complete nonsense. So-called scholars, Mayavadi, cannot understand Krishna with their poor fund of knowledge. One should, therefore, approach an authorized person to understand Krishna. The spiritual master has actually seen Krishna, therefore he can explain him properly. Tad vini paripasnena sevaya, upadeksyami te jnanam jnaninas tattvadarshina. Bhagavad Gita 4:34. Without approaching an authorized person, one cannot understand Krishna. That means you absolutely need a bona fide guru in order to understand what's going on in the material world. That's why it says, without approaching an authorized person, one cannot understand Krishna. Okay. So text number 12. My dear King Rahugana, unless one has the opportunity to smear his entire body with the dust of the lotus feet of great devotees, one cannot realize the absolute truth. One cannot tolerate, one cannot realize the absolute truth simply by observing celibacy or brahmacharya, strictly following the rules and regulations of household life, leaving home as a vanaprastha, accepting sannyasa, or undergoing severe penances in winter by keeping oneself submerged in water, or surrounding oneself in summer by fire and the scorching heat of the sun. There are many other processes to understand the absolute truth, but the absolute truth is only revealed to one who has attained the mercy of a great devotee. Yeah, so there's many different types of tapasya that one can perform. But ultimately, the only way that the absolute truth can be understood is by surrendering to a bona fide devotee and follow the instructions that is given by the pure devotee. Purport. Actual knowledge of transcendental bliss can be bestowed upon anyone by a pure devotee. Vedesa durlabham adurlabham atmabhakto. One cannot attain the perfection of spiritual life simply by following the directions of the Vedas. One has to approach a pure devotee, anyabilasita sunyam jnana karmadi anavritam. By the grace of such a devotee, one can understand the absolute truth, Krishna, and one's relationship with him. A materialistic person sometimes thinks that simply by executing pious activities and remaining at home, one can understand the absolute truth. That is denied in this verse. Nor can one understand the absolute truth simply by observing the rules and regulations of brahmacharya, or celibacy. One only has to serve the pure devotee. That will help one understand the absolute truth without fail. So, By serving a pure devotee or pure devotees, one can understand the absolute truth without fail. But associating with mundane people and speculating will not help at all to understand the absolute truth. Who are the pure devotees mentioned here? Good question. In an assembly of pure devotees, there is no question of discussing material subjects like politics and sociology. Uh, in an assembly of pure devotees, there is discussion only of the qualities, forms, and pastimes of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He is praised and worshipped with full attention in the association of pure devotees by constantly hearing with tripas. Respectfully, I'm sorry, in the association of pure devotees by constantly hearing such topics respectfully, even a person who wants to merge into the existence of the absolute truth abandons this idea and gradually becomes attached to the service of Vasudeva. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. The symptoms of pure devotees are described in this verse. The pure devotee is never interested in material topics. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has strictly prohibited his devotees to talk about worldly affairs. Yeah, like baseball, basketball, and stock markets, and other mundane subjects. Gramya Varta na kahibe. One should not indulge in talking unnecessarily about the news of the material world. One should not waste time in this way. This is a very important feature in the life of a devotee. A devotee has no other ambition than to serve Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. This Krishna consciousness movement was started to engage people 24 hours daily in the service of the Lord and in his glorification. The students in this institution engaged in the cultivation of Krishna consciousness from 5 in the morning to 10 at night. They actually have no opportunity to waste their time unnecessarily by discussing politics, sociology, and current events. These will go their own way. A devotee is concerned only with serving Krishna positively and seriously. Text 14. In a previous birth, I was known as Maharaj Bharata. I attained perfection by becoming completely detached from material activities. Through direct experience and through indirect experience, I received understanding from the Vedas. I was fully engaged in the service of the Lord. But due to my misfortune, I became very affectionate to a small deer. So much so that I neglected my spiritual duties. Due to my deep affection for the deer, in my next life, I had to accept the body of a deer. Okay, my dear devotees, this should be a wake-up call. If you have a pet dog at home, and you spend a lot of your time taking care of the dog, it will definitely contaminate you and
Yes.
take your real, let's say, preoccupation from Krishna to becoming uh, preoccupied by the dog. The incident herein described is very significant. In a previous verse, it is stated, Vina Mahatpada Rajo Vishakam. One cannot attain perfection without smearing the dust of the lotus feet of an exalted spirit devotion, a devotee on, on his head. Without smearing the dust from the lotus feet of an exalted devotee on his head. If one always follows the orders of the spiritual master, there's no question of falling down. As soon as a foolish disciple tries to overtake his spiritual master and becomes ambitious to occupy his post, he immediately falls down. Yasya prasada bhagavat prasado yasya prasadan nagatir kutopi. If the spiritual master is considered an ordinary man, the disciple surely loses his chance to advance further. Despite a very rigid life in devotional service, Bhagavat Maharaja did not consult a spiritual master when he became overly attached to a deer. Yeah, he was overwhelmed by the deer, taking care of the deer, and forgot about Krishna consciousness. Consequently, he became strongly attached to the deer, and forgetting his spiritual routine, he fell down. Okay, so there. Are there any questions? I think we're going to stop there, where Bharat Maharaj did not consult a spiritual master when he became overly attached to a deer. Consequently, he became strongly attached to the deer, and forgetting his spiritual routine, he fell down. There it is. It's a very profound statement. See, without strictly following the activities of Krishna consciousness, it's very easily we can be sidetracked and get attached to something else, like a deer, or a dog, or a car, or a position, and a position making a lot of money, and completely take our attention away from Krishna consciousness. There was one man who was uh, always trying to be, let's say, successful in life. So he started to do tapasya, and he continued to do it. But he was tested, and he was offered a position, a high position in a company. And as soon as he heard that the CEO of a company wanted him to take a position, high position in his company, he immediately left his activities in Krishna consciousness and became a director in the company. That is the uh, important example of what happens when we are not really strongly situated in Krishna consciousness. At any moment, we can fall down. And we'll be tested. We'll be tested. So if someone says, well, we got your name after doing a search of all qualified personalities in business activity. And we want to give you a big position. So sometimes uh, people who are on the spiritual, path, they'll give up all spirituality and take some big position as a CEO or as a, let's say, prominent uh, manager and completely forget Krishna consciousness. Yeah. So here it says, despite a very rigid life in devotional service, Bharata Maharaj did not consult his spiritual master when he became overly attached to a deer. Why would he become like that? Well, because of his attachment to the deer, he didn't want to talk to a spiritual master because he was afraid that the spiritual master would say, get rid of the deer.
Hare Krishna.
You have no business getting attached to a deer. Leave the deer alone. The deer can live in the wilderness. It doesn't need you. So yeah.
So Maharaj, in this situation, Bharat Maharaj knows he's doing incorrect,
Yes.
and still he was afraid to ask his.
He didn't want to get an opinion from a bona fide guru.
So is it because the mind is playing more tricks?
Yeah. Maya is playing the tricks. Yeah. Yeah. There's a whole story about this. There's an Armenian story about this, the same thing, where someone, there was this one man, every day he would say that may the devil go to hell. And he would say that all the time. When he'd wake up in the morning, he would say, may the devil go to hell. And when he would, take a bath, he would say, may the devil go to hell. When he finished the bath, he would say, may the devil go to hell. So all day long, he'd be saying, may the devil go to hell. So after some time, the devil became upset. He said, who's this nonsense guy? He's always cursing me. So therefore, he and the devil produced a donkey. And every day when this man, he would walk to, his job. One day he saw a donkey, and he was wondering who does this donkey belong to, but then he didn't think about it, But every day he would see this donkey. Now, it wasn't there before, but it just appeared. And so then he went and actually looked at the donkey very closely, and he took it home, right? And he used it to come to work every day. Before he would walk. Now he could ride on a donkey. And pretty soon he became very attached to the donkey. And one day the donkey went to drink water. And, there was this place where there was a spigot and for animals to drink water. And his master, he became the master of the donkey. His master was, rode the donkey to the water, basin, and he got off the donkey to let him drink the water. And all of a sudden, he went into the spigot. The whole donkey, somehow or other, went into the whole spigot. And the man, when he saw that, I mean, he couldn't believe it. And then he looked into the spigot and he could see the ears of the donkey moving a little bit inside the spigot. And then he was shocked and he more or less became crazy. And he said, "The donkey is in the spigot." And he started walking around. He sort of like lost the control of himself. And he kept repeating, "The donkey is in the spigot." And people thought he went crazy. And he started, and he was not able to do his job anymore. He was not able to take care of his family anymore. He just kept saying, "The donkey went into the spigot." And eventually, this was really, causing havoc in his family because he wasn't able to do anything anymore. He was just walking around saying the donkey went into the spigot. So finally, a group of elders made him sit down, and they said, "Look, we know that the donkey went into the spigot, as you're saying. But if you keep saying this, you're going to lose everything. You're going to lose your business. You're going to lose your family. Everything will be taken away from you because people think you're crazy. So we're asking you, please stop saying this and just act normally so that you can take care of your family and so that there will not be any havoc in your life." But the man said, "But the donkey went into the spigot." Well, we know the donkey went into the spigot. That's not the point. But if you keep saying that, you'll lose everything. So just keep that to yourself and do your work. And don't start saying the donkey went into the spigot. So he said, okay. So he stopped saying it. But still, he would go every once in a while to where the trough, or where the the water would go into the spigot. Water would go into a trough, and the animals would drink from it. But he would do it now privately without anyone seeing it, like late at night or something. And every time he went there, he would see the donkey's ears inside the spigot. You know, and he couldn't get that out of his mind, right? But now he had to be very careful because he was warned. He was warned that if you continue doing this, you're going to lose everything. So why did that happen? Because previously, every day, when he would wake up, when he would walk to his job, when he would talk to people, he said uh, that may the devil be cursed. And so, when he would like wake up in the morning, he would say, "May the devil be cursed." When he would walk to his job, he would say, "May the devil be cursed." When he'd say hello to someone, he wouldn't say hello. He'd say, "May the devil be cursed." Finally, the devil became upset. Said, "Who is this guy going around and cursing me all the time?" So uh, the devil produced this donkey, right? And the man became attached to the donkey, and because of that, he became a little bit like crazy. And one day, the donkey, when he was drinking water from the basin, they had these basins in the previous time where animals could drink some water. While he was drinking water, and the master was waiting for him to finish drinking water, the donkey went into the spigot, and the guy was like, I don't know, shocked. And then he looked in the spigot and he could see the ears of the donkey moving a little bit, And then he started walking around every day saying, the donkey went into the spigot. And people realized that this guy's gone crazy, right? So this was the devil's trick because at that the man was always saying before, may the devil be cursed. And the devil got sick and tired of hearing this nonsense that he should be cursed. So he produced this, uh, you know, donkey, and he made it so it went, it disappeared into the spigot. But if you looked into the spigot, you would see his ears moving. Anyway, it's an old, uh, you know, what you would call a story. Uh, as that's an example of what happens when you become overly attached to something, and it becomes like it overtakes your whole consciousness, and you can't think clearly about what is your real duty in life. It gets so attached to something that is nonsense. So, and this was all done by the devil to teach a lesson to this man that was always going around and said everything he would say, he would end up by saying, "May the devil be cursed." And eventually, the devil became really upset with this man, and he created this false donkey. And the man became attached to the donkey, and it ruined his life. So it's the same thing, and I mean these are old time stories, but it's the same thing when a person become. I mean, I knew this one devotee. His guru said, "You should be able to make some money and use it in Krishna's service." So this devotee became obsessed to make money, and he tried to make money by uh, selling things to devotees, right? What do you call that? Multi-level marketing. So he started really, uh, every day he would talk to different devotees, so they would become his down, what do you call his down
Line.
line, right? And everyone was really disturbed by him. He was always trying to force them to become a downline. So eventually, uh, this devotee, I mean, this is a true story now. This devotee uh, basically lost the respect of the other devotees because he was no longer interested in Krishna consciousness. His mind became completely seized by the desire of making money by uh, what do you call it, multi-level marketing. You know? That's like the donkey, you know. And eventually he failed. He did not. He didn't. Nobody wanted to even talk to him because every time he would come around talk to the devotees, he tried to sell them this level marketing nonsense. So we have to be careful not to become sidetracked from pure Krishna consciousness and then developing these false concepts that we can become a millionaire overnight by selling some junk product or whatever. Okay, so uh, the so Jagbarata, what is it? He became. Uh, it says that Yasya Prasada Bhagavat Prasado Yasya Prasada Nagati Kutopi. If the spiritual master is considered an ordinary man, the disciple surely loses his chance to advance further. Despite a very rigid life in devotional service, Bharata Maharaj did not consult a spiritual master when he became overly attached to a deer. Consequently, he became strongly attached to the deer and forgetting his spiritual routine, he fell down. That can happen to any of us when we become attached to something mundane. And because of that, we neglect strictly following Krishna consciousness. Okay, if the spiritual master is considered an ordinary man, the disciple surely loses his chance to advance further. Despite a very rigid life in devotional service, Bharata Maharaj did not consult a spiritual master when he became overly attached to a deer. Consequently, he became strongly attached to the deer, and forgetting his spiritual routine, he fell down. That's our takeaway for today. But that can happen in many different ways in our own life. Right? It might not be a deer, it might be something else. Right? But giving up our devotional service by being attached to becoming a multi-level marketing person or something else that is going to take our mind and time away from Krishna, we become strongly attached to something material and we forget the spiritual routine and fall down. Yeah, hey, I don't have time to go to the temple. I don't have time to chant my rounds. I have to do this. I have to supply the what do you call it? Uh, he has a, a timeline that he has to
Downline.
follow. Downline.
Downline.
Yeah, his downline, and he has to maintain, all the people that are under him. So instead of thinking about Krishna, now he's meditating on increasing his downline.
Correct. So Maharaj, one question: how a neophyte can protect himself not to go into this and situation, or how to protect himself, because this happened to a pure devotee. So neophyte can also get affected by overly attachment to anything. And even though devotee knows that this is incorrect, how to protect in that situation, what to do, or how even not to go in that direction.
Well, the answer is here. Despite a very rigid life in devotional service, Bharata Maharaj did not consult a spiritual master when he became overly attached to a deer. Consequently, he became strongly attached to the deer, and forgetting his spiritual routine, he fell down. That was his fall down. He became so attached to the deer that he did not ask his spiritual master, is this right or wrong? And therefore, he fell down. This happens all the time. Let's say a brahmachari is following a strict life, but he meets some women and he unnecessarily associates with her, and then it destroys his spiritual life. It can happen. And it has happened many times like that. That's why it says here the spiritual master is considered if the spiritual master is considered an ordinary man, the disciple surely loses his chance to advance further. Despite a very rigid life in devotional service, Bharata Maharaj did not consult a spiritual master when he became overly attached to a deer. Consequently, he became strongly attached to the deer, and forgetting his spiritual routine, he fell down. That can happen to any of us. And therefore, what is it Maharaj is saying? I was fully engaged in the service of the Lord, but due to my misfortune, I became very affectionate to a small deer, so much so that I neglected my spiritual duty. Due to my deep affection for the deer, in my next life, I had to accept the body of a deer. So there are devotees, I mean, I know devotees who have dogs, and they're so attached to the dog that it takes a lot of their time. And you have to walk, take the dog out for a walk. They have to wait for the dog to pass stool. They pick up the stool, put it in a bag, and they come back home. They have to feed the dog, and then the dog is always doing something in the house, and so forth. So eventually, their whole life is taking care of the dog, and they forget about cleanliness. The dogs are not clean, and they forget about strictly following the regulative principles and so forth because they're taking care of the dog. In this case of Bharat Maharaj, it was a deer. Yeah, at one day Bharat Maharaj was saw a what was it, a lion was chasing after a mother deer, a big mother deer, and the deer was running away, and eventually, uh, because of her frightened state, the mother deer dropped. She was pregnant, and she dropped the baby from her body, and then jumped, uh, 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 jumped to her death to get away from uh, the lion that was following that trying to kill her. Right? And and then when the Jad Bharat saw the helpless little deer that was very cute that had been dropped by the mother, he adopted the deer and became attached to the deer, to protecting it and feeding it and so forth. And it interrupted all his devotional service. And eventually he became like crazy. And he was always thinking of the deer and he forgot completely about Krishna. Okay. Well, of course, the baby deer is very cute. You have to admit it. They're very, very cute. But if you become attached to a baby deer, it's not going to help you in your devotional service. So we should avoid any disruption to our Krishna consciousness. Anything that takes our mind away from Krishna is Maya.
Hare Krishna Guru Maharaj. Please accept my humble obeisances. You were mentioning attachment for Maharaj to a deer. So in a material world, we have the attachment to our children. So that's my attachment. So how to, because she's my responsibility, so I'm attached to her. I'm in Krishna consciousness, but still. So how do you balance that out? Thanks.
Well, one time a uh, Mataji asked Prabhupada a question. She said that she felt very, let's say, disturbed in her mind because she was involved so much in taking care of her children that she couldn't, do what all the other devotees were doing, going to Sankirtan and preaching and some of those things. And she asked Prabhupada, was what she was doing correct? I mean, taking care of her children, but missing out on, all the uh, things that other devotees were doing. And Prabhupada said, your duty is to take care of your children. That is your real duty. Later on, after they're grown up, then you can, become more involved in devotional service. But your devotional service is to protect your children and educate them to be Krishna conscious. So she asked the question of Prabhupada. She said, Prabhupada, I can't really offer service to you like I did before because I have my children. And is this right or is it wrong? And Prabhupada said, your first duty now is to take care of your children. After they're grown up and they can take care of themselves, then you can engage yourself full time in Krishna consciousness. She thought she was doing something wrong by taking care of her children. But she was intelligent enough to bring her doubts to Srila Prabhupada and ask him what she should do. And Prabhupada said, your duty is to take care of your children, but they're going to grow up and then you'll be free of, it won't be as severe uh, responsibility. And then you can be fully Krishna conscious. So you should always get the advice of the spiritual master.
Thank you, Maharaj.
You see what the problem is with Bharat Maharaj. It says, despite a very rigid life in devotional service, Bharata Maharaj did not consult a spiritual master when he became overly attached to a deer. Consequently, he became strongly attached to the deer, and forgetting his spiritual routine, he fell down. So when the devotee asked the question of Prabhupada, the Mataji asked the question of Prabhupada, Prabhupada, I don't really have time to serve you because I'm so involved in taking care of my children. And Prabhupada said, your first duty now is to take care of your children and teach them to become devotees. And later on, once they're grown up, you can be more completely engaged in directly serving, Krishna consciousness. But your duty right now is to raise your children to be Krishna conscious. That's also devotional service. Okay. So thank you very much. We'll stop right there and pick it up again later on today. Hare Krishna. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. You see, Prabhupada was always practical. He was not, he was always giving the right information or right, uh, let's say, the right advice to the devotees. So this one lady who told her, Prabhupada, I'm not able to serve you like the other devotees because I have my children and have a big responsibility taking care of them. And Prabhupada said, your responsibility is to take care of them. And that is also devotional service. If you teach your kids to become Krishna conscious, that is devotional service. You're helping 1, 2, or 3, or 4 souls to become Krishna conscious. And later on, when they're older, you will be free of that responsibility and you can spend your whole time preaching or whatever to other people. But right now, your number one priority is to raise your children to become Krishna conscious. Prabhupada was very, very, what you'd say, grounded. He knew exactly how to give the right instruction to devotees. Okay, we'll stop right there today and continue on. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram